Hi there. I'm Regina. Ever been cut out of your own family's story? Yeah. My mom banned me from my dad's 70th birthday. Said it would be too awkward if I showed up. And then, my sister's boyfriend, the one she never told me about, he walked into my office on Monday morning and said, "Hi, boss." Turns out, I was his boss. They erased me at home, but couldn't escape me at work. But what hurt more than being excluded was realizing it wasn't the first time. They'd been rewriting me out for years, one silent decision at a time. How far will your own family go to keep you small? It was early October in Seattle, the kind of day where the air hinted at winter, but the leaves hadn't quite let go of their gold. I had the window cracked open, letting in that cold, sharp breeze that always helped me think clearer. My calendar was already blocked out for next weekend, 2 full days cleared for Dad's birthday. 70 was a big one. He wasn't the type to throw himself a party, but Mom? She wouldn't let it pass without a show. I had just finished confirming my flight to Boise. Direct midday, enough time to grab flowers at the airport and arrive without looking like I'd sprinted out of a boardroom. On the kitchen counter was a small wrapped box. Nothing extravagant, just a vintage pen I found in a little shop tucked behind a bookstore downtown. He always loved pens. Said they made even boring paperwork feel like poetry. As I set the box aside, my phone buzzed. Mom. I hesitated for a beat before answering. She didn't call often, not unless she needed something or had news carefully scripted to sound spontaneous. "Hi, sweetheart," she started, voice syrupy smooth. "I'm just checking in. How's the weather up there?" We exchanged the usual pleasantries. I mentioned work was busy, that things were fine. I didn't go into detail. She never asked, and I'd stopped offering years ago. After a brief lull, she exhaled sharply, like she was gearing up for something. "I wanted to talk about next weekend," I paused. "Okay," she hesitated. "Well, Jody's bringing someone, her boyfriend. It's kind of a big deal for her. He's a CFO, very polished, speaks well, very confident. I just think, maybe it's better if this year you sat it out." The words came gently, but the sting was instant. I didn't say anything. "I just think it might get awkward," she added. "You know how people compare." So there it was, not a request. A decision wrapped in concern. I'd seen this move before, one that looked polite on the surface but underneath was a full-body shove out the door. I kept my voice even. "Sure, I understand." There was a pause, long enough for her to notice I wasn't rushing to reassure her, to ease her guilt. Not that she had any. "Well, good," she replied too quickly. "We just want everything to go smoothly." I ended the call without saying much else. Then I sat down at the edge of the bed, feeling like a guest in my own family story. The clock ticked past 6. Outside, the sun was already slipping beneath the skyline, casting shadows over the hardwood floor. I stood up, grabbed my laptop, and opened Instagram. Jody's page was what you'd expect. Carefully filtered smiles, brunches in curated cafes, candlelit shots of her hand in someone else's. No names, no tags, just enough mystery to stir engagement. Not once had she mentioned a boyfriend. I figured she was keeping it private, but now it was obvious. She wasn't being discreet. She was being deliberate. I scrolled through her feed. Months worth of content, all gloss and symmetry. Not a single photo of Dad. No mention of me. No family. It wasn't just that I wasn't invited. I'd been erased. I clicked my screen shut and leaned back, my eyes unfocused. Somewhere in the kitchen, the coffee maker beeped softly, reminding me I'd left a fresh cup waiting. I didn't move. "So much for family," I muttered to no one. The words felt heavy, like they belonged to someone who'd finally stopped hoping for something different. My phone lit up again. This time it wasn't a call. It was a message from Mom. "Could you still help cover Dad's medication? The bill came in early." I stared at it for a long moment. No "how are you?" No follow-up about the canceled visit, just a direct line back to what I was good for. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I just set the phone face down on the table and let the silence settle. I left the phone where it was, screen dimmed, notifications still unread. The silence in my apartment had shifted. It wasn't peaceful anymore. It was thick, sharp around the edges. I got up slowly, like moving too fast would shatter whatever calm I had left, and walked to the kitchen. The coffee had long gone cold. I poured it out without a second thought and instead filled a glass of water, watching the stream hit the bottom with a soft clink. I didn't drink it. I just stood there, hand gripping the counter, eyes fixed on nothing. The clock over the stove read 9:12 p.m. I made my way back to the living room and sat down in front of my laptop. I hadn't opened this particular spreadsheet in months, not since the last emergency call came in. I kept it buried behind layers of folders labeled with dry project names. No one would think to look for it. I opened the file. Top left corner. Family expenses. I scrolled. There they were, each line a small moment where I'd stepped in without hesitation. $246.31, internet plus cable. Just until Jody gets her next paycheck. $392, car battery replacement. Your dad's truck won't start, can you handle it? $1,180.45, out of pocket for mom's dental crown. We didn't expect the insurance gap. And it went on, month after month, some larger, most small. But they added up, quietly, like everything I did. The total glared up at me, $19,278.59. No one ever said thank you. They didn't even pretend it was a favor. It was always phrased like obligation, like I was the sensible one, the one who didn't need praise or recognition. Just a task and a deadline. I remembered a Sunday night, nearly midnight. I had just wrapped up a review with our clinical team, exhausted, hungry, and still in heels. That's when Mom called. Dad's cardiologist doesn't take our insurance anymore. Jody can't help this time. Could you handle the copay? And I had. I always did. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. It wasn't the money. I made enough to cover it. It was the assumption, the erasure. Like my worth only existed in transactions. I was never invited, never mentioned, but always expected to pay. I moved the cursor back to the top of the spreadsheet. Then I renamed the file. Invoice for silence. The click of the save button felt heavier than it should have. I shut the laptop gently, stood up, and walked toward the window. Outside, Seattle's nightlights blinked against a hazy sky. People were probably still out, laughing, drinking, clinking glasses in celebration. It all felt distant, like I was behind some pane of soundproof glass, watching a world I used to want to belong to. I opened a bottle of wine, not because I wanted to numb the feeling, because I wanted to taste something that didn't disappoint. Glass in hand, I sat back down. My phone buzzed again. Not from Mom this time. A group text from Jody. She'd sent a link to a new podcast she was featured on. No mention of me. Of course not. As I scrolled up, I found a message from a few months ago. Jody had thrown a surprise dinner party for Mom's birthday. The family photo still stung. Balloons, cake, all smiles. I wasn't in it. I hadn't even been told there was a party. Sorry, it was super last minute, Jody had texted when I asked. Right, because the custom cake, printed menus, and gold foil name cards all screamed spontaneous. I thought back to another moment. Christmas 2 years ago. I'd mailed a gift, a framed photo of Dad holding me when I was 3. I never got a thank you, not even a text, but I did see it posted on Jody's feed the week after, captioned, "Some memories never fade." No tag, no mention. Just cropped perfectly, so no one could tell I was the one who sent it. I wasn't invisible. I was edited out. I sipped the wine. It was dry, a little bitter. Fitting. I could hear Mom's voice again in my head, the softness laced with passive commands. Let's just keep things simple. Jody already has enough pressure introducing Ethan. And suddenly I heard myself say aloud, I'm not the one making it complicated. The clock now read just past 10. I walked over to my desk, unlocked my phone, and opened the family group chat. Dozens of unread messages, one from Mom with another receipt, one from Jody about a new brand collaboration. Not a single word about the birthday call, not a single apology. I didn't respond, not out of spite, out of clarity. I tapped out of the chat, scrolled to my hidden folder, and opened the spreadsheet one last time. Then I added one more line. $0. Emotional bandwidth permanently withdrawn. Monday came too fast. Not in the way weekends disappear, but in the way you sense something's about to shift and you're not entirely ready for it. I woke up before my alarm and stared at the ceiling, letting the quiet hold me. My phone stayed on Do Not Disturb. I didn't want to see what else Mom or Jody had sent. I already knew whatever it was wouldn't contain a single ounce of apology. By 8, I was dressed and on the 21st floor of the Pacific Biogenics building, coffee in hand, pretending the weekend hadn't cracked something inside me. I had back-to-back meetings, 3 project sign-offs, and a stack of HR files to review, including final onboarding paperwork for our new senior finance executive. I opened the folder labeled Prescott Ethan. I froze. CFO, relocating from our East Coast division, scheduled to report directly to me. Prescott. The name wasn't that rare. It couldn't be the same Ethan, could it? I clicked the internal staff portal and scrolled down to his photo. There he was, blazer, clean-cut, confident smile. The same smile I saw on Jody's feed once, disguised in a wine-tasting post, the caption vague but flirtatious. Of course. I didn't need confirmation from her. I'd just gotten it here. I didn't move. I didn't even blink. I simply minimized the screen, straightened the documents on my desk, and waited for the knock. It came 5 minutes later, on the dot. Come in. He stepped in with a practiced ease, file tucked under his arm. He was about to speak when his eyes locked on mine, and everything shifted. His smile faltered. His grip on the file tightened slightly. Regina? He said, more question than greeting. I kept my voice even. Welcome to Pacific Biogenics. He blinked. You're the COO? I nodded. That's correct. You'll be reporting to me directly. He didn't say anything for a beat, then cleared his throat. Right. Hi, boss. I gestured toward the seat across from mine. Have a seat. Let's walk through your onboarding. His body language screamed discomfort, but I didn't flinch. I kept my tone neutral, hands steady. I didn't ask if Jody had told him who I was. I didn't mention Boise. I didn't ask how long they'd been dating, or if she had ever spoken my name, because I already knew the answer. As we reviewed timelines and expectations, my thoughts stayed detached. I was performing, cool, efficient, professional. But beneath the surface, I kept replaying the phone call from Mom, the way she made it sound like my presence would ruin something, like I didn't belong. And now? Now the man they were so eager to impress was sitting in front of me, completely blindsided. He tried to recover. So, you and Jody, you're sisters? I nodded. Yes. Did she ever mention me? He shifted in his seat. She said you lived far away. That work kept you busy. I smiled, not warmly, not cruelly, just a firm, closed-lip kind of smile that ends conversations without words. That sounds like her. He looked down at the onboarding packet like it might offer an escape. I flipped the next page for him. Let's stay focused. I expect full transparency and detailed weekly reports, especially during Q4 planning. Understood? He straightened. Yes, of course. We finished the session in under 20 minutes. I stood to signal it was over, and he followed my lead, heading toward the door. As he stepped out, he glanced back, like he wanted to say something, but he didn't. Smart. I sat back down, checked my calendar, then opened our team chat to confirm his new profile had been added. A ping from HR popped up in real time. New hire orientation photos uploaded to shared folder. Out of curiosity, or maybe something closer to instinct, I clicked. There it was, a wide shot of the welcome event last Friday. Ethan, front row, drink in hand, beaming. Right beside him, partially out of focus but unmistakable, was my nameplate, Regina Warren, COO, just behind his left shoulder. He hadn't made the connection, not then, but now? Now he had no choice. 3 days passed, and I hadn't heard a word from anyone in Boise. Not from my mom, not from Jody, and certainly not from Ethan. The silence at first had been a balm, but by the third morning it felt loaded, like the air before a thunderstorm. I kept my focus tight, buried in back-to-back board reviews, but even as I sat through a budget call that Friday afternoon, I could feel it. Something was about to crack open. That evening, I got home later than usual. Seattle was already dipped in twilight, the horizon smeared with gray. I changed into sweatpants, tied my hair up, and brewed a fresh cup of black coffee. Tomorrow was Dad's 70th birthday. Not that I was invited. I had no intention of calling, no plans to send a gift, but old instincts die hard. I still had the package I bought him, the pen, tucked into my closet. I hadn't unwrapped it. I was halfway through my coffee when my laptop pinged. A video call was coming in from Aunt Lorraine. Odd. I accepted, hesitating slightly. The screen flickered, then opened to chaos. The kitchen in Boise was pitch dark, barely lit by a flashlight taped to a broomstick. Shadows danced across the walls. I heard clattering, loud voices. Someone shouted, "The meat's going to spoil!" Another voice snapped back, "I told you we needed a generator!" Aunt Lorraine's camera was angled upward, showing the ceiling fan. Still. She fumbled with the phone until I saw her tired face. "Regina, honey, thank God you picked up." I raised an eyebrow. "Everything all right?" She turned the camera, and that's when I saw them. My mother pacing in the kitchen, hair in rollers, makeup half done, looking furious. Jody near the sink, frantically swiping at her phone, clearly trying to troubleshoot something. And Ethan, yes, Ethan, kneeling near the outlets, untangling a mess of extension cords like it was a battlefield. I froze. "What's going on?" I asked slowly. "The power's out," Aunt Lorraine muttered, clearly stressed. "Everything's shutting down, the oven won't start, and your mom's losing it." As she turned the camera again, Ethan glanced up, and his eyes locked onto the screen. "Wait," he said, pausing mid-motion. "Is that—" Evelyn snapped. "Lorraine, why is she on here?" "She picked up! You were screaming for help!" Ethan stood fully now, wiping his hands. "That's Regina," he said, almost like he was realizing it out loud. She's my boss." Silence. A sudden, wide, clumsy silence. Even the shouting stopped. Jody froze with a dish rag in her hand. My mom turned so slowly I thought the feed had frozen. "She's what?" Jody asked, her voice cracking. Ethan nodded, visibly uneasy now. "Yeah, at work. She's the COO. I report to her directly." Evelyn's face contorted, first with disbelief, then confusion, then panic. "That can't be. You said she worked in science somewhere." I didn't say a word. I didn't smile. I didn't lean forward. I just stared back through the screen. Jody's voice cut through the room. "End the call." Aunt Lorraine fumbled and the screen went black, just like that. I leaned back in my chair and let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. 20 minutes later, my phone vibrated with a text. "Jody, you didn't need to say anything. This was Dad's day, not yours." I stared at the message for a second before another one came. "You always wait for a moment to shine, don't you? Always watching, waiting for someone to trip so you can step in and look perfect." Perfect? That's what she thought this was? I didn't reply right away. I poured myself the rest of my coffee, added a splash of oat milk, and stood in front of my living room window, watching the city move. Then I typed. I didn't say a word, but maybe silence speaks louder when it's the truth. I hit send. No emojis, no explanation. Another buzz. From Mom this time. "Did you have to let him say that? Couldn't you have just redirected the conversation?" Redirected? I closed the phone and placed it face down on the table. I sat in the dark for a while. Not dramatic darkness, just the kind that fills a room when you don't feel like flipping on the lights. The coffee cooled beside me. The hum of traffic below drifted in through a cracked window. I thought about how much effort they had put into keeping me small, out of the photo, out of the conversation, out of sight. They didn't want me silent. They wanted me silent and useful. The one who paid bills without asking, who mailed gifts no one acknowledged, who understood without needing clarity. And I had played along for far too long. I wasn't chasing validation. I wasn't asking to be paraded around like a trophy. All I had ever wanted was a seat at the damn table, a chair, a plate, a moment of truth. Not even celebration, just recognition. They'd rather I stayed in the kitchen, off camera, out of frame, holding things together. But not anymore. I opened my work laptop and scanned through unread emails. One subject line caught my eye. Board wants to confirm Ethan's role title before press release. My cursor hovered over the reply button. I didn't reply to the board immediately. Instead, I minimized the email and leaned back in my chair, letting the silence of my apartment settle over me. It was late morning in Seattle. Gray light spilled in from behind the blinds. Outside, someone was walking their dog. I could hear the soft clink of a leash. It was amazing how calm everything looked, while something inside me was sharpening. The next message came an hour later, from my mother, of course. Your dad needs to schedule another cardiology follow-up. We'll need some help again. Can you let me know by tomorrow? No, thank you. No mention of the birthday, no apology for the chaos or the exposure, just the next request, handed to me like a utility bill. This time, I didn't stare blankly. I didn't stew. I opened my laptop, clicked into my documents folder, and pulled up a draft I'd worked on months ago but never sent. The header read, Family Support Terms. It wasn't a legal document yet, but it was sharp, precise, clear. I filled in the final blanks. Monthly contribution, $1,000 contingent on equal contribution from Jody. Any assistance above the base level to be considered a loan. Upon both parents' passing, full property rights transferred solely to Regina Warren. I attached the PDF and hit send without a single added word. 15 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a voice message. Mom's voice came through strained, halfway between a gasp and fury. Are you serious, Regina? You're turning family into business. What kind of daughter puts her parents under contract? I tapped record and answered flatly. I was part of this family, until you turned me into a utility. Now I'm just treating it for what it is, a transaction. I hit send, and for the first time in months I felt still. Later that afternoon, a message popped up from Amy Nguyen, an old high school friend who still lived in Boise. We hadn't spoken in years, but I'd always liked her honesty. Hey, just saw your mom at Traders Guild brunch, she wrote. She mentioned Jody helped cover the plumbing disaster last month. Must have been expensive. I blinked. The plumbing bill? That was me. $2,438.06 to be exact. I'd wired the money directly from my emergency fund after Mom called me in tears about the burst pipe. I opened my receipts folder, pulled up the email confirmation. I hovered over the reply field to Amy for a long second. I wanted to type, "Glad to know Jody's getting credit for my bank account. That must be a nice setup." But I didn't. Instead, I screenshotted the receipt and quietly saved it to my family ledger folder. No need to argue. Receipts always speak. That evening, I stayed late at the office. Most of the team had left. The fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. I sat by the large corner window with a mug of lemon tea, watching the skyline flicker to life as the sun dipped below the sound. Ethan passed by on his way out. He hesitated near my door, like he wasn't sure whether to say something. Then he nodded, small, respectful. I nodded back. No words exchanged. We both knew too much, and yet the silence between us was no longer awkward. It was mutual understanding. Back at my desk, I reviewed the quarterly reports, signed off on a few travel approvals, and finally, took a breath that didn't feel borrowed. I wasn't the quiet one anymore. I wasn't the fallback option, the extra seat in case someone else canceled. I wasn't the invisible daughter who paid quietly and waited for scraps of recognition. Now, if I was in the room, it was because I put myself there, and if I wasn't invited, I'd build my own damn table. Later that night, as I settled into bed, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Jody. "You're blowing everything out of proportion. Why are you doing this now?" I stared at the screen. This wasn't her being confused. This was her being scared. For the first time, I was refusing to play my role, and when someone's used to you staying quiet, your boundary feels like betrayal. I didn't reply. Not yet. By the time I walked into the office the next morning, something felt off. The building looked the same. Same pale lights, same half-wilted plants near reception, same drone of printers echoing from the copy room. But the energy had shifted. Or maybe it was me who'd changed. Maybe I was finally seeing clearly. I used to brush past tension. I let sideways glances slide off my back. I chalked up awkward pauses in conversation to coincidence. But now, everything felt sharper, like someone had peeled the protective layer off the world. The usual rhythm was still playing, but now I could hear the dissonance underneath. I dropped my bag next to my desk, slid into my chair, and opened my laptop. Calendar first. 3 meetings, 2 briefings, and a budget review. Nothing that couldn't be handled. I told myself everything was under control. Then I checked my phone. 7 missed messages, 2 voicemails, and 1 screenshot from my cousin Layla, someone I hadn't heard from in months. She wasn't exactly the chatty type anymore, especially with me. So when I saw her name pop up, I braced myself. The message read, "Hey, did you really send your parents an invoice for being old?" My heart did this weird little lurch. My stomach went tight. I tapped the image attached to her message. It was a screenshot of a family group chat I was no longer in. One I'd been in once, long enough to remember how loud it could get with jokes, updates, chaos. I'd left quietly months ago when I realized the conversations always had an audience and rarely had space for nuance. Now I was seeing it from the outside. The message in question? From Jody. "Regina sent our parents a contract. She wants a clause that gives her the whole house when they die. Can you believe that? She's literally charging them to exist." I wasn't tagged, but it didn't matter. My name didn't need to be spelled out. Every word in that message had my fingerprints on it. Below were the replies, fast, judgy, predictable. That's so corporate. Wow, what happened to compassion? She's always been cold though, right? Each comment hit like a slap, but I didn't stop reading. I wanted to see how far they'd go. Then Aunt Donna added her piece. "Your mom said she's always been intense, but I didn't know she'd go this far." And there it was. The worst part. Evelyn, my mother, hadn't stepped in, hadn't defended me, hadn't said, "That's not true," or "You don't know the full story." She just let it happen and added color commentary, the kind people remember even after they forget who said what first. I sat back slowly, my fingers wrapped tightly around my phone. The office hum blurred into the background, fading beneath the thud of my pulse. But I wasn't angry in the frantic way I usually got. No hands shaking, no shallow breathing. I was steady, sharp, done. I didn't reply to Layla. I didn't jump into the group chat and try to explain, to claw back my version of the truth. They'd already built their story. They liked it better. Instead, I opened my notes app, not to vent, to document. I started typing a timeline. The day Jody called me crying, panicked about her job loss. The exact time I transferred $1,000 into her account without being asked. The short phone call after, 6 minutes, tops. The silence that followed, as if I'd just filled an obligation and she'd moved on. And then a memory crashed in, uninvited but clear as daylight. 2 days later, my mom's kitchen. I just walked in with groceries and she was on the phone, her voice light and proud. "Jody's so independent, she never takes a dime, just like I raised her." I remember stopping mid-step, a dish towel in one hand. I didn't say anything, just listened. Tried not to let it dig into me, tried to pretend it didn't hurt like hell. Back then I swallowed that moment whole. Let it sit, unacknowledged, somewhere in my chest. Not this time. I flipped to my email app and started writing. Not to them, to my lawyer. Subject: Property Clause Review and Financial Withdrawal Notice. Body: I'd like to formally begin the process of removing myself from any verbal or informal obligations tied to my parents' home or living expenses, unless outlined in a binding agreement. Let's also explore options for safeguarding past contributions and establishing limits going forward. I reread it once, not to soften it, just to make sure it was clear. Click, sent, let them talk. Let them build their own version of me out of shadows and fragments. Let them stay in their group chats, trading commentary like currency. They could keep their stories. I had my receipts, and I was done letting silence speak for me. That evening, I got home later than usual. I was tired, but not drained. There was something almost peaceful about the clarity. I poured a glass of ginger ale, ice cold, my comfort drink since childhood, and dropped onto the couch. For the first time in weeks, I didn't reach for work. I didn't start doom scrolling. I just sat. Breathed, existing without bracing for impact. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. One line. "We didn't raise you to be this cold." Once, that would have broken me. I would have stared at that message for hours, wondering how to explain myself in a way that felt gentle, digestible, acceptable. Not tonight. I typed back immediately. "You raised me to stay quiet. I'm done with that." I locked my phone and flipped it face down on the coffee table. Then I turned on the TV, something low stakes and forgettable, and let the voices of strangers fill the room. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. I didn't feel numb, or heartbroken, or desperate to be understood. I just felt done. And that, surprisingly, felt like peace. The next morning, I arrived early to the office, earlier than usual. The building was still quiet, save for the clatter of a janitor's cart somewhere down the hall and the low buzz of the HVAC kicking on. I needed this quiet. A pause before the inevitable noise. I set my coffee down and opened my laptop, fingers gliding through tabs, emails, and dashboards. Numbers, reports, approvals, all normal, all mine. Then came the ping. It was subtle, like most storms are before they break. "Did you see the company chat?" That was the message from Sam in product. Just 6 words, no emojis, no context. I opened Slack. My pulse quickened. In one of the private team channels, supposed to be limited to the analytics crew, was a thread titled, "Small World, huh?" Someone had dropped the onboarding photo from last week. The one with Ethan standing near my nameplate. Another comment followed. "Wait, Ethan's dating her sister?" Then another. "That explains the tension." And another. "Yikes, what a mess." The chat had hundreds of views, a few likes, a GIF thrown in for good measure, something snarky. I just stared at it. This wasn't just family drama anymore. It had leaked, bled into the one place I kept sacred. My work, my name. I scrolled up. It didn't say who leaked it. Maybe someone overheard something, or maybe someone had a hunch. Either way, the fire had started, and it was spreading. I muted the thread. Not out of defeat, but strategy. No one could say I'd joined the circus. Let them talk. Let them guess. By midday, I was knee-deep in a quarterly report when my phone buzzed again. It was Ethan. "Can we talk?" he wrote. I didn't respond. Not yet. Later that night after dinner, my curiosity got the better of me. I opened Instagram just out of habit, and there it was, a blurry shot from a restaurant in Boise. Jody and Ethan. Tense body language. His hand midair like he was explaining something. Her face turned away. I didn't have to be there to know what was happening. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the text. She saw the chat. She lost it. Accused me of embarrassing her. Said I ruined everything. He didn't add anything else. I waited. Then came the second text. I told her the truth, about you, that you didn't deserve what they've done. I didn't reply right away. I just stared at the screen, thumb hovering. Finally, I typed, "I never asked you to defend me, but thank you for seeing it." He responded with just one word, "Finally." Somewhere between the broken silence and the truth, a door had cracked open. Not long after, another message came, this time from Jody. It simply said, "You think you've won? This isn't over." No hello, no punctuation, just venom. I didn't open it. I didn't even blink. Instead, I stood up from my couch, walked over to the window, and looked out over the lights of Seattle. They had dragged me through years of quiet expectations, unspoken roles, and buried names. But now I was the one standing in the light. And if that made them uncomfortable, so be it. They were the ones who built the lie. I just stopped living inside it. The following morning felt strange. Not dramatic, just settled, like something had finally clicked into place. I brewed coffee in silence, let it sit a little too long, then poured it anyway. My phone rested on the kitchen island, quiet. No new texts from Jody, no guilt-ridden voicemails from Evelyn. Just the quiet hum of my own life, uninterrupted. Around 10 a.m., there was a knock on my office door. It was Ethan. He looked relieved, worn but lighter than I'd seen him before. No briefcase this time, no work pretense. Just a man who had finished something hard. "I told her it's over," he said simply. I didn't say anything right away. I walked over to close the door behind him and leaned back against it. He continued. "I told her I couldn't keep doing it, defending things I didn't believe, acting like loyalty meant covering for someone who erases people instead of owning anything." He met my eyes. "I should have asked more questions. I should have asked about you." "You didn't know," I said, "but now you do." He gave a small nod. "She's not just guarded, she's cruel when she's scared." I didn't argue. I didn't have to. He'd finally caught up. "I'm sorry," he added. "Don't be," I replied. "Not to me. You were lied to. But you stopped believing the lie. That matters." We stood there for a long pause. No bitterness between us. No longing either. Just the mutual understanding that we'd both outgrown the same shadow. As he turned to leave, he paused. I don't know if you're spiritual or anything, but Jody always acted like your presence ruined her balance. I think it's because you showed up holding a mirror. That's funny, I said, because I stopped trying to be her reflection a long time ago. Later that night, after dinner, I was going through emails when my phone pinged. It was from Aunt Lorraine. The preview said, "Thought you should hear this." I clicked. It was a forwarded voice memo, old, scratchy. Evelyn's voice, clear as day. Just a heads up, Regina's a little hard to explain. Best to focus on Jody if you're serious. She's easier for people to like. My eyes didn't widen. My heart didn't race. I didn't even feel the sting I once would have. I just felt done. Not broken, not enraged, just ready to end it all on my terms. I sat down and pulled out my stationery box from the hallway cabinet, the same one I used to send birthday cards and thank you notes to the people who never acknowledged them. I drafted a letter. No sarcasm, no rage, just facts. Mom, Dad, this isn't about money. It never was. This is about memory. And mine, moving forward, won't include group chats where I'm only contacted for payment. It won't include parties I'm excluded from, then blamed for not attending. It won't include gifts unwrapped off camera or holidays where my name is missing from every caption. I've rewritten mine. I won't be attending future events. I wish you peace. I no longer wish for your approval. Regina. I folded it neatly, sealed the envelope, and addressed it in full block print like I did as a child learning to write. Then I walked to the mailbox 2 blocks down, dropped it in, and stood for a second as if to mark something real. Back home, I opened my phone and deleted every contact under family, one by one, clean, quiet. It was oddly satisfying, not out of spite but clarity. They had written me out of their version for years. I just finally returned the favor. The next morning, I sat at my desk and opened my inbox. There it was. Top of the queue. Subject: Family Trust Transfer Inquiry, immediate review requested. I stared at it. I didn't hesitate. I didn't rage. I didn't reply. I just hit archive. Then I went on with my day. The air outside had that crisp edge only late autumn could bring. Seattle was cold, but clear. The sky stretched wide and pale above the city, the way it does when something feels finished, even if no one had said the words aloud. 2 weeks had passed since I mailed the letter. 2 weeks without a single word back, until this morning. I'd been working from home, nestled into my reading nook with a wool blanket and a coffee cup I didn't plan to refill. The ding of my phone made me glance over. Voicemail. From a number I hadn't saved in years, though I knew it by heart. I didn't play it at first. I just let it sit there, glowing quietly on the lock screen. Eventually, I listened. Hi, sweetheart. It's Dad. I saw the letter. I know you meant it. I guess I just wanted to say I'm sorry if things ever felt one-sided. Your mom had her ways. I probably didn't always do the right thing, but you didn't have to shut us out completely. That was it. Not a word about the birthday, not one about the years of omission, not even a hint of accountability, just soft avoidance and the quiet suggestion that I'd overreacted. I didn't return the call. Instead, I sat still, letting my memory take me someplace I hadn't visited in a long time. 7 years ago, a family dinner in Boise. I had flown in for the holidays, rearranged my meetings, missed a major pitch review just to be there. Mom had made a comment about my need to outshine. She'd said it casually as she passed me the potatoes. You know, sweetie, not everything's a presentation. You don't have to be on all the time. I'd frozen, looked to Dad, hoping, just hoping, for even a glance that said he saw me. He didn't say a word, just kept chewing. Eyes on his plate, fork, chew, sip, swallow. That was the moment I realized silence was a choice, and Dad had always made his. Now, so had I. Around noon, I checked my inbox. One new message. Ethan. Subject line. Just thanks. I clicked. Hey Regina, no updates. Nothing dramatic. Just wanted to say I'm still here. Still learning. Still showing up, even when it's uncomfortable. You taught me that. Thank you for never shrinking to make others feel tall. I didn't reply. I just starred it, filed it away in a folder called Messages Worth Keeping. Later that evening, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was Aunt Lorraine. She didn't bother with greetings. "Your mother called me," she said. "Said I let you turn against the family. Said I gave you too much space to think." I sighed. "Let me guess. Now I'm cold, too calculated to love?" There was a pause on the other end. "She's spinning it," Lorraine said. "Telling people you planned all this to punish her." "She needs a villain," I said quietly. "I just stopped volunteering for the part." Lorraine exhaled, and her voice softened. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to be," I said. "You told me the truth when no one else did. That's enough." That night, I went for a walk through Queen Anne, the neighborhood quiet except for leaves brushing across sidewalks. I passed a small bookstore tucked between a florist and a tea shop. Inside, the lights glowed warm against the dark street. I went in. The air smelled like cinnamon and old paper. A little boy brushed past me with a stack of chapter books nearly taller than him. His mother smiled, a little embarrassed. I smiled back. Not just polite, but genuinely. There was peace in not performing anymore. At the back of the store, I browsed the shelves. No purpose, just letting my fingers land wherever they wanted. Poetry, essays, old cookbooks, nothing with a family on the cover. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. I watched it ring for a few seconds, then tapped the side button and let the silence wrap itself back around me. I didn't need the final word. I didn't need the stage. I just needed peace. And now I had it. And maybe that's the real story here. It's not about who got the last word or who stayed in the family photo. It's about choosing peace over permission, about walking away, not because you don't care, but because you finally care enough about yourself. For years, I believed being quiet was the respectful thing to do. That love meant swallowing hurt, ignoring red flags, and covering bills without asking for thanks. But silence is not always strength, and being the bigger person should never mean being the invisible one. So if you've ever felt like the outsider in your own family, if you've been the dependable one, the quiet one, the one who carried weight you never asked to hold, this story was for you. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to ask for more, and you are allowed to walk away if you're being erased. Because healing doesn't always look like reunion. Sometimes it looks like peace. Before you go, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever been the invisible one in your family? What did you do? What would you say to someone going through it right now? If this story touched something in you, drop a 1 inch in the comments, or tell me what city or state you're watching from. I read every reply. And hey, if you didn't like this story, let me know why. I value honesty. Tell me where you're tuning in from and what kind of stories you do want to hear. And if you want more real, raw, and reflective stories like this one, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Your support helps keep these voices alive. Thanks for being here.